Hello class, this is Professor Avila with a lesson for my method students on objectives, the EDI style of objectives. Let's jump into it. So if you notice in EDI, we start off with a learning objective after our preparation. So we're going to see what that looks like today in the style of EDI. For EDI, what is a learning objective? A learning objective is a statement that describes what students will be able to do successfully and independently at the end of a lesson as a result of your classroom instruction. Emphasis on the independently. You want to make sure your students can do it on their own. And this is meant to just be an idea for a specific lesson, not beyond. So if we were to look at this objective representing proportional relationships using equations, we're going to identify the three parts of the EDI learning objective and the objective that was written. The parts are concepts, skills, and context. Concepts are the big idea in the learning objective. Usually, but not always, it's a noun. So in the example of represent proportional relationships using equations, what would be the concept? The big idea here is proportional relationships. The second part of the objective is the skill. That's the verb in the objective, and it must be something that you could measure, something that students could show you that they can do. So in the same objective, represent proportional relationship using equations, the skill would be represent. Okay, they're representing proportional relationships. Finally, the context is a specific condition under which the objective will be executed. The context for this one is that within proportional relationships, we're going to represent them using equations. So the context is equations. That's the condition under which the objective is being executed. Here's a few more examples of the context. Take a look at them written in bold. Pause the video here for a second to read them all and get a sense of what objective is like. Sorry, of context is like. That's the specific condition under which the objective will be executed. So what were the three components of an EDI objective? There was concepts, skills, and context. The concept was the big idea, the skill, a verb, and the context, the condition under which the concept will be executed. So let's take a look at a couple of objectives, see if you all can identify the concept, skill, and context. So if we were going to do the objective, we will derive linear equations using the point slope formula. What would you say is the concept, skill, and context? The concept in this case would be linear equations. That's the big idea. The skill, deriving. That students are able to derive linear equations. And therefore the context is going to be using the point slope formula. So we're using linear equations within the context of learning the point slope formula. Try one more. We will simplify algebraic expressions using exponent rules. In this case, what would be the concept, the skill, and the context? The concept would be expressions, actually, algebraic expressions more specifically. That's the big idea in this objective. The skill, simplifying them. So how are we going to simplify? What's the context in which we're simplifying these algebraic expressions? Using the exponent rules. Okay, hopefully you get an idea of the structure of objectives. And we learned that an objective is something as a statement that describes what students will do successfully and independently at the end of a lesson. That's really important. It doesn't go beyond one lesson. It's just an objective statement for the day in that lesson. When you present an objective, you still CFU. So you present the objective and you check for understanding. You'll read the objective. You'll have students read with you the objective, have them pair share, and then call on a random student to read you the objective one more time. See if they can do it without looking, but if not, have them read it straight from the board. But we always, even just like anything, we teach and we check, even in the learning objectives. When we write our objective, they are going to be based on your grade level content standards. In your standard, you should look at skills, concepts, and context in the standard. Could be a whole lot in just one standard. One standard can contain a lot of objectives. Deconstruct or break down the standard to be able to write your specific learning objectives. So in the exercise that we're going to do, we're going to take an item from the SBAC exam. We're going to look at the standard and then try to write an objective for it. So here's a problem from one of the SBAC released items. Solve the following equation for W, and the equation is there. We look there below, and that is associated to standard A, R-REI dot 4A. And that standard is this. Solve quadratic equations in one variable. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you know that there's a lot going on in this standard. Take a moment to read it. But if we look at this one specific problem, it is only one part of this entire standard. It's not the whole standard represented here in just one problem. So we have to identify what strategy are we going to use? What would be the context for this situation? In this case, the teacher or maybe the book is deciding on going with square roots to be able to solve this quadratic equation, even though there might be other ways to solve it. But now we have the context. So if we went from the item from the SBAC to the standard to figure out what the context is going to be and isolating a skill as well to be able to finally write an objective. So for this particular problem, if we were going to do a lesson around it, the objective would be we will solve quadratic equations using square roots. So the concept would be quadratic equation. That's the big idea in this problem here, and associated to the grade level standard. What's the skill? Solving. That is the action. That's the verb that students are taking on to be able to show you that they are able to solve quadratic equations. And finally, the context is, in this case, the context of quadratic equations is being able to solve them using square roots. Okay. We will be engaging in the more exercises like this for your lessons. But again, you'll see the item from the SBAC, identify the standard, so we could then identify the skills, concept, and context in the standard, select the context for this particular question to help us write the objective. Thank you very much, everybody, for following along with my lesson on objectives in EDI style. Again, we learned about how to write objectives. We got to check for understanding and then use a grade level standard to be able to write the objective. Thanks for following along, everybody.